till dawn. I turn my speakers on. Why they wanna play with the king? I told them meet LeBron. There's darkness in my city. Wrong moves and you won't see the sun. They be talking loud but never been where the creatures hunt. Ain't bleed for this dream, so why your eyes closed? Been running through the pain. Look at me and now my strides go.
How are we all doing today? This video is not sponsored by Prime, by the way. It's actually sponsored by me. I'm really excited to announce that my cinematic sound effects pack is now live on my website. This pack consists of a library filled with all of the sound effects that I use throughout my YouTube videos, my Instagram content. Head on over to the top line in my description to discover the full library of sound effects. Now, on with the video. So today I wanted to dive into something pretty interesting that I am quite passionate about. As you guys know, I post a lot of like static postcard videos on Instagram, and I've seen this sort of like really cool visual technique, I guess, over the past few weeks, and I wanted to make a quick video and kind of show you guys how to do it because it really sort of like inspired me, I guess, as well as I feel like this is a really, I don't know, an eye-catching thing to throw into potentially an Instagram carousel or even a reel, especially if you're working with a lot of brands or you're doing a lot of like your personal work. I think this is just a really cool technique which I kind of wanted to show you guys, as well as teach you the fundamentals on how to pull this off. To break it down simply, we are combining a clean screenshot with a static locked off video. First off, let's talk about lens choice and how we can actually shoot this out in the real world. So I would recommend choosing a lens anything from 11mm all the way through to 35mm. So that will be in the wide lens bracket, so to speak. The sole reason for using a wider lens is because it captures more of the environment and it gives your audience more context. That's why something tighter like an 85mm or a 50mm, you won't be able to get that sort of wider aspect or that same effect because you'll have a lot of separation and you'll lose quite a lot of the background, and the goal here is to capture as much as the environment as possible as well as the subject. And lastly, you're going to need a tripod because this entire technique solely relies on getting the perfect static frame. When you're out and you're recording in the real world, so to speak, the main objective here is to get two separate shots. The first one being your action shot, so your subject being in the frame, whether that's you or a model you're working with or whoever it may be. You want to have your action shot, and then you have your clean plate, so no one in the frame. Ideally, you want a little bit of movement in the second shot in the clean plate because that is essentially what is going to sell this effect. What will make this entire effect way more interesting to look at is the action that you are doing in the action video, so to speak. And a great example of this is Q Mike. He absolutely nailed these static postcards. As you can see, each slide has its own little story. This one, it looks like he's like late for work and he's on a phone call. So depending on what your action is, this really determines how well you can sell this effect, okay? Which is why I say the action shot is like the most important. I would highly recommend in the action video slide to try and stay as still as possible because you're essentially going to be cutting yourself or cutting the subject out of this video and overlapping it on top of the other video. So if you can just hit a bunch of different poses and try and stay as still as possible, you'll be able to have like a variety to choose from, as well as it just being easier for you to edit after the fact. So for this video in particular that I did in Japan, I was actually wearing all black because I kind of wanted to try out this effect, and if I wore all black, it would be easier for me to kind of like cut myself out when you're in post. And one more thing before we jump into the editing process is make sure you lock focus. I would advise maybe shooting this on f3 or maybe f2 if you want that separation, but if you want your entire background in focus as well as your subject, then obviously shoot on a higher f-stop. But again, if you want that separation, make sure you manual focus on your subject so that when they step out of frame, then you can get a completely blank canvas with the same focal point. Jumping now into the computer, we can either use DaVinci Resolve, Final Cut, or Premiere Pro, whatever one you feel more comfortable with. One thing that's going to play a huge part in this entire effect is Photoshop. Here are my two clips. This is my action shot. As you can see, I'm just here at Shibuya Crossing, fixing my hood, getting in everyone's way. And then here is my clean plate. So I've just stepped out of frame, got the exact same shot. One thing to keep in mind, make sure you color grade both of your clips before doing this. Pick a static shot where you like the action your subject is doing. So for my instance, as I'm fixing my hood, I quite like this frame. So all I need to do is hit the little camera icon and export frame. So I want to hit OK. That is now going to export that entire frame as a photo. Then what we're going to do is once we've exported that frame is open it in Photoshop. So you're going to want to go over to the toolbar and hit the magnetic lasso tool. And then because I'm wearing all black, essentially this is going to be a lot easier for me just to cut myself out of this shot Again, this is probably the most time consuming, but you want to make sure you get this spot on. Don't be afraid to take your time with this also, and try and get it as best as you can. So if you have to go back into Photoshop, you might have missed a few bits sometimes, like I have here. Don't be afraid to just go back in and just really clean it up. And again, go over the edges with the blur tool. Once you've cleaned up the subject and you've got it to a point that you're happy with, you then want to export that as a PNG with a completely transparent background. Go back into the editing software and then drag and drop it on top of your clean plate. And then that way you will have, by the end of it, a completely static shot of your subject with a moving background. And that right there, ladies and gentlemen, is how we can create and edit this really cool sort of frozen in time video effect. And this is definitely a scroll stopper. If you throw this into a carousel, it's definitely going to make people who are looking through your carousel stop and be like, oh, how's he done that? It's definitely going to spark some intrigue, which is why I think it's working so well. If you guys do happen to try this out yourself, feel free to send it to me over on Instagram, send me a DM, tag me in your post or whatever it is, because I'd love to see what you guys create. But with that being said, thank you all so much for watching. If you did like this video, please leave a like, rate and subscribe down below if you're new. We are super close to 100k, and I feel like we might just make it before the end of the year. So if you guys could subscribe, it would mean the world. So thank you guys, and I will see you all very soon in the next one. Peace.